We discussed Farsight, Mega Cryptopolis, and now we have the Evolution Land. There's another game that you were involved with too, which is Decentraland, and of course there's a Sandbox, which you also involved with. What are your thoughts on those games compared to what you're doing right now?
Um, well, those games are, I mean, because they're built on a certain aspect of like they are the metaverse, right? So they don't really want to incorporate other interoperability. I mean, there might be some variations of their metaverses having interoperable aspects, but that is not their focus. And they're also built on Ethereum. And also that's also Polygon too. So our game utilizes all blockchains, and originally we're on Ethereum, but we understand how technology evolves, the gas costs in barrier of entry. So we understand that we need higher throughput, lower gas prices, and high efficient security. So security is most important. That's why we started with Ethereum, but then we also pivoted to our own blockchain, which are built to own security. So having those level of transactions with NFTs is kind of a high value proposition, and also very risky. Like you're also, if you were to move a crypto punk across multiple chains, if the traditional custodian wallet holds your NFT a hostage on one chain, and if they decide to collude and take away, multi-sig, their NFTs, you're basically stuck with a wrapped version of it that has no value. And that's the difference with our technology, is that we are introducing mapped versions. So it's a one-to-one value that's on multiple chains. So once you send it to another chain, it literally burns it on the original chain. But because the information's put into the block, it shows where its original, all the original information that's attached to the NFT. And that header information, that's a metadata that's attached to it, it carries with it whatever chain you go to. So you always have a one-to-one value, and there's no custodian holding your NFT.
Got it. So your argument is that, like, say, Decentraland and the Sandbox, although they're very popular, has built-in flaws, which they're based on the Ethereum network, which is really slow and very expensive.
Exactly.
And we're going to start noticing, as a lot more people embrace the Oculus and get on, get their virtual headsets on, they're going to start entering these virtual worlds of like Decentraland and Sandbox, and
Yeah.
start interacting in them. I wonder how boggled the network would be, because I've experienced it in our games, Mega Cryptopolis, how slow it could have been on the Ethereum network until we moved over to Matic, and then the speed just made the game much more enjoyable.
So what they sacrifice is security. And when they start creating accessibility to these games on chain, they start creating second layer solutions. So they might have their own chain, side chain, like a Ronin for Axie, but you still have to move everything over to that. So what kind of security do they have that allows them to do that? And where do they sacrifice security for speed? That's the biggest drawback. And is that their grand vision? Do they care about security? And that's the most important, because we're holding billions to trillions of dollars in these NFTs, and we don't want them to be hacked. That's constantly happening. So that's kind of what I see, is that they'll have to build their own blockchain or sidechain or wallet, in-game wallet, that facilitates their tokens. But once they put them on chain, what bridge solution will they be using?
So the appealing aspect of those two games is that eventually you can have your own online store on it, right? You can build within your land that you have in Decentraland. I mean, they already built casinos and things like that, but then everyone has that ability. They can go in there, build in like a shopping district, which is already there, and then you can put stores and sell stuff. So
Hmm.
that is the appeal, I think, for them building up the future. But to get there, it's going to still take, that critical mass when people start adopting to it. But right now, I think it's still a little bit early stages. People are just walking around, just trying to explore, but it hasn't really been
Hmm.
like a monetary incentive for them, a strong monetary incentive, other than just buying and flipping digital land, from what I noticed.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it differentiates with our game is that we've focused on like the foundational aspects, like the resources that hold liquidity for that the ecosystem, and like the land has some value to holding the land outside of just having land. And then the construction has been kind of like everybody else's focus. So like, oh, let's get the construction up. So visually it's a pleasing, and then they could do all the variations of customization with the land. But then where do they incorporate some type of microeconomics? What do players that don't have the financial background to jump and buy these lands, like, are they going to the casino in the game to play casino games, or will they actually utilize it just as a gamification? So to me it's just they're communities. They have a grand vision, but there's the underlying aspects are a bigger barrier of entry, and that's where we're like trying to bring it down to such a low level that allows everybody to get in,
Mm.
and then they can grow with us. And that's why I like with Farsight and MCP is that they're trying to build that trickle down economy, allowing the free to play players to just kind of jump in, casually play. If you're doing sandbox, you have to be kind of an editor. You have to make these voxel edits, and if you have that background, you could monetize these into NFTs. But that's the same as if you made an NFT in general. It doesn't have to be on Ethereum. So it's kind of limiting to me is because it's on Ethereum. And what's the underlying layer? The sand token. Okay, you earn that if you do these particular tasks and whatnot. Okay. Um, but where does it go from there? You use the sand tokens to build things. No, you use it to buy things like the land itself. But you can't use that. You have to use Ethereum.
So it
Um,
seems like there's a lack of that in-game micro economy for
mhm.
new users or users who can't afford to buy land.
Yeah.
It seems it would make sense. It's kind of like VR chat. It's like a game on Oculus where people just walk around, discover, just communicate with people, and that's pretty much what they do. Just like explore, maybe date. It's like just talking and chatting, and then, oh, I can buy something in the store. I can buy an NFT in this gallery, or eventually you can buy clothing from this store that I went online. I mean, when I went into the metaverse for,
Mhm.
whether it's going to be on Sandbox or Decentraland. So that's
Mhm.
what I'm seeing in the future. However, games like Mega Cryptopolis, I feel like have an even more in depth like version of it, which I'm very excited about. It's like you could, if like say you own a building, a level 7 building, and then later on the microeconomy means that you can rent out floors or rooms within your building, and or you can
Mhm.
have people manage them, so it gets even more detailed. And there's that value to it where I don't see it at the moment in Sandbox and Decentraland, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's pretty much a long-term, vision. And it can get to that point once they have these ecosystems built out in Sandbox. But then you still have to interact with the settlement layer with Ethereum, which is quite expensive. So
Mhm.
where do you have your liquidity? It's going to have to be on Polygon or something like that, like another side chain or a side chain of their own. um so they didn't think about the interoperability, gas prices and all this. Like, they just go, this is where we're home at. And people from the outside, looking in, they see Ethereum as a place to go because that's where all liquidity is. But that's because that was the base layer that we all had to work on originally. There's a lot more going on than that. That was just the basis of the ecosystem. And Ethereum is a proof of work blockchain. is still at a mercy of a lot of factors, environmentally, government, it could be, it's banned in many places now. And just, it's not sustainable. There's some, it's not truly decentralized. Like, you still require a server to run um Ethereum. Like, there's still, like, they could pull the plug on it. And that's the difference between truly decentralized blockchains, that there's no regulatory aspect that nobody can pull the plug on. Like, we are in full control. So I don't, the proof of stake model is the old way to run things, and Ethereum 2.0 seems like a pipe dream, and it's not going to immediately affect us in a positive way, because the transitional part is going to be really effective towards people that are in the mining ecosystem, and that's all they care about. They don't care about the applications. They don't care about the ecosystem. It's a security theater, so they have to sell their Ethereum to maintain their miners, and they're constantly putting pressure on the market. Um, but it's not as big as that, because now there's a deflationary aspect of EIP 1559, that there's a, Ethereum gets burned for all the transactions gone through. So it is helpful in that aspect, but Ethereum is another application layer. Like, layer zero chains are going to be the facilitators for the whole ecosystem, because they're built with security in mind. They're built at the most arbitrary level of metadata that doesn't require application layer interactions. So that's another attack vector, doing any computational information, such as sending, fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens. You don't technically need a smart contract for that. You could just send data. So that's where the underlying security comes from, is these bridges can connect to other layer zero bridges, and create a multi-chain ecosystem. And then on top of that, we build an application like an Ethereum. And then if Ethereum 2.0 comes out, that will be its security level. And layer one will be Ethereum as a shard. So it'll be interconnected through E2.0's ecosystem. And then each will have its represent blockchain shard, and then applications like Evolution Land or Mega Cryptopolis and all that. So that's kind of where I wanted to kind of reach to Farsight and Mega Cryptopolis, is how they're going to approach that. Are they going to have a multi chain ecosystem with these tokens on these chains, and have like a built-in dex, have a built-in blockchain on top of it as a security layer? Where's the longevity in that? Because that's where Evolution Land stands out more than anybody else, is that they care about the foundational layer of where they build their projects on, where other projects want to build on top of others. And so we want to incorporate that, but we also want to have our own to fall back on. Like, why not combine all security levels when everybody could speak to each other a certain way? There's a understanding of transactions, a security model that everyone agrees on, as a standard. But once it goes on their chain, that's up to that chain, as a consensus layer, where we, kind of allow the free flow access of our security to kind of go into other chains, and they can tap into that. And then games like Evolution Land or even Mega Cryptopolis could utilize from that security, speed, ecosystem governance, just kind of everything that will allow for a long-term vision when it comes to security and interoperable multi-chain ecosystem.